welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Of course, we know it's Wednesday, and if you've been following along with the channel, you know that every Wednesday I have a top 10 countdown, and it can be about anything and everything. So far, most of them have been either about sports or wrestling, but a few of them have not been. So they don't have to be about sports or wrestling, but I try to take requests most of the time and see if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about on the top 10 list. And this week's was by request. A friend of mine named Anthony has asked me to do all-time WWE top 10 finishers. So that's what this Wednesday's top 10 countdown is going to be about. If you're a college football fan or know someone who is, stay tuned for tomorrow's video, because tomorrow I'm going to be doing my early season preview of the North Carolina Tar Heels 2021 football season and find out where I have them as far as the over-under goes, because I have not read all the magazines, but I've seen some, and I've read some articles on different websites, and a lot of people have them as a top 10 team this year, and you'll find out tomorrow whether or not I agree with that. So if you're a college football fan or know someone who is, stay tuned for tomorrow's video. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this week's top 10 countdown, which, as I said, is all-time top 10 WWE finishing moves. And then when I get done, I'll name off a few moves that barely missed the countdown, because like I say every week, when you only have a top 10, something has to get left off. Number 10 on my list was the Macho Man elbow drop. And the reason why it's on my list, of course, these lists are always very opinionated. Some people like, actual finishers, and some people like submission moves. I prefer the actual finishers myself. But the Macho Man's elbow drop is on my list only because nowadays in wrestling, in every promotion and almost every match, people use the top rope. But back when he started doing that elbow drop in the late 80s, early 90s, you just didn't see hardly anybody use the top rope. So to see him climb that top rope and jump off and do that elbow drop, to me, as a young man just getting into wrestling, was amazing, because it was something you just didn't see. Number 9 on my list is the Seth Rollins curb stomp. That's a very devastating move. It actually got banned by the WWE for a while, but it's slowly making its way back into Seth Rollins' full-time arsenal of moves. Number 8 on my list is the Jackknife Powerbomb by Kevin Nash, who was then going by Diesel. Of course, it's been done by different guys throughout the years, but in my personal opinion, nobody's ever did it quite as good as Kevin Nash did it. Now, of course, Batista brought it back as well and called it the Batista Bomb. The only difference was Kevin Nash stood up when he dropped him, and Batista sat down with him, but Batista got it from Kevin Nash. Number 7 on my list is a move that's very similar to the Jackknife Powerbomb, and it was made famous by Razor Ramon, and that was called the Razor's Edge. I used to love to watch him do that finishing move, because it just looked like he killed the person every time he done that move. Number 6 on my list is a move that's been banned by almost every big-time wrestling promotion in the world today. I'm going back years ago, back when it was the WWF, and that was the pile driver by Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Now, if you watch that move and watch how it's performed, if there's just one little bitty hiccup by either guy, somebody's going to get paralyzed or close to it. So you can understand why it's been banned by almost every single big time promotion. But as far as devastation, that was a devastating move by Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Before we get into the top 5, if you like this video so far, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and help the channel continue to grow. Don't forget, we had a giveaway at 100 subscribers. We just had a giveaway at 500 subscribers, and we'll have another giveaway whenever we get to 1,000 subscribers. And everybody likes to win free stuff, so please continue to spread the word for us. We'll recap 10 through 6 real quick. Number 10 was the Macho Man elbow drop. Number 9 was the curb stomp. Number 8 was the Jackknife Powerbomb. Number 7 was the Razor's Edge. And number 6 was the pile driver. Now, breaking into the top 5, number 5 on my list was Brock Lesnar's F5. Now, I know a lot of people despise Brock Lesnar, but of course, most of that has to do with the backstage, behind the scenes politics. But whether or not you like Brock Lesnar doesn't matter. That move was very devastating. Number 4 was a guy that I personally myself don't like and never have, but his finishing move was still very, very devastating, and that was CM Punk's Go to Sleep, or as most people call it, the GTS. Number 3 on my list was the Stone Cold Stunner, and of course that move's been brought back now by Kevin Owens, but Stone Cold made it famous. Almost anybody can tell you, if you just walk up to them, if they're just a casual wrestling fan, and you say, who did the stunner? 99% of people know it was Stone Cold. So even if the move is not devastating, if it makes somebody that famous and gets them over like that, then it's a great finishing move. Number 2 on my list is the RKO. Now, I know a lot of people, including a friend of mine that I work with named James. James, when you watch the video, how's it going, man? He's always talking about Randy Orton pretty much getting that move from DDP. Of course, DDP called it the Diamond Cutter, and Randy Orton calls it the RKO. But to me, if I watch the moves side by side at the same time, it just looks more devastating when Randy Orton does it. But both of them look great. But the reason why the move is so high on the list when other moves look more devastating is because that move is a move that there for a long time you could get on any kind of social media, whether it was Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. It didn't matter, and you would just see random people using objects to give them an RKO, or animated stuff to give RKOs. So when the move gets out that bad and everybody's doing it and getting famous with it, then Randy Orton is doing something right. And number 1 on my list, of course, was the Tombstone Pile Driver by The Undertaker. That is probably, according to most people, going to be, if not number 1, at least number 2 or 3 in anybody's all-time finishing moves, because the move was just so devastating. And then, of course, Undertaker being so tall, it made it look even more devastating. But the Tombstone Pile Driver is number 1 on my list. And then I'll mention a few moves that just missed the top 10. One of them was the Vader Bomb. Now, that move looked devastating as it was, but then Big Van Vader being so big, if you just picture him putting his full weight on somebody, that sounds extremely terrifying, extremely scary, and I would not want to be the person underneath taking the Vader Bomb. Another one that barely missed my list, and then I'll explain why it missed my list, was the Sweet Chin Music from Shawn Michaels. And I was always a huge Shawn Michaels fan. And at the time when he did the move, it was devastating and looked scary. But in the 20 years it's passed, there's probably 50 guys in different promotions that do that move. So when you got a move that anybody and everybody starts doing in every single match, and it's no longer a finisher, now people just do it in the middle of the match, then to me it kind of waters down the finishing move, and it's no longer a finishing move. But the Sweet Chin Music was devastating back when Shawn Michaels did it. Another one that barely missed my list was the Samoan Drop. Of course, you only see big guys do that move, and the Samoan Drop is a scary move, But it's even scarier when all the guys that ever did it were 350 and above. And it was a great move, but it was not quite top 10. Another one that barely missed my list was the spear, and it was kind of like the same thing as the Sweet Chin Music. The spear was great, but now there's so many guys that do it, and most of them that do it now, it's not even a finisher. So when a move gets done in the middle of a match, it's not a finisher. So it kind of watered down the spear, but it was a great finisher back in the day. And another one that barely missed my list was the sharpshooter. And the reason why the sharpshooter missed my list was not because it wasn't a great move, because it was. It's just because of the fact when Anthony asked me to do the list, I said, yeah, I'll try to do it. But I personally, like I said earlier, I like actual finishing moves better than submission moves. Now, if I did a top 10 only submission moves, and of course it would be on the list. But if I'm a young, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid watching wrestling, I'm going to get more of the ooh, ah out of an actual finisher than I am a submission move. That's just my personal opinion. And the other one that barely missed my list was AJ Styles' move, the Styles Clash. I like the move. I've always liked the move. But there for a while when AJ Styles was still in TNA, Vince McMahon made Michelle McCool start doing the Styles Clash to make fun of TNA, saying, hey, your world champion's doing this move and our female wrestler can do it. And to me, it just kind of watered down that move and killed that move. But it's still, nonetheless, a great finisher. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's Top 10 Countdown as we look back at the Top 10 all-time WWE finishing moves. I had to make sure that I stuck with WWE because when Anthony asked me to do the video, he specifically said in the comment, Top 10 WWE finishers. He didn't say Top 10 wrestling finishers. He said Top 10 WWE finishers, and that's why the list was strictly WWE and not other promotions from around the world. And I'm glad he was specific because it made it a lot easier for me because I didn't have to go back and think about the NWA days and the AWA days and the Mid-South back in the day and WCW and WCCW. I only had to focus on one promotion, so it made it a lot easier because if you look back at the history of wrestling, if you had to do top 10 finishers all time in wrestling, it would take a long time if you actually sat down and had to go back and look at the history of all the different promotions because there's been a lot of guys have finishers over the years. So, Anthony, I'm glad you were specific and said top 10 WWE finishing moves because it helped me out tremendously when I had to sit down and make my list. Go ahead and give you my dad joke of the day before we get out of here. My wife said, you really have no sense of direction, do you? And I said, where'd that come from? And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.